Hello, friends. Recently, I went on an endeavor to play a different class in Project Diablo 2 and switch my build up. I'd made a decision not to keep proceeding with the Holy Free Sacrifice build on the Paladin, though I think it was really good and really fun and I enjoy it, but I've been having a lot of fun with a new project, which is the Fist of Fire Assassin. I've played Assassin plenty of times, but it's been a really long time since I considered playing an actual full-on martial build in Project Diablo 2. And lo and behold, I probably picked the best time to do it. With the recent changes to the cooldown of the Dragonflight ability after Stalker's Call was changed, meaning you no longer need that claw for optimal movement speed, this build has become one of the most fun things I've actually ever played. You'll see in the footage that I'm basically just zipping and jumping around the entire map constantly and blasting everything as I do. The playstyle is pretty smooth, and once you get used to the combination style of it to optimize your damage and your clear, it's one of the fastest mappers I've ever played. I'll give a brief overview of the gear that I'm using, gear options you could use, what a more budget-friendly version of this would probably look like, as well as talk about the skill point distribution and what you could do if you're interested in playing it. As far as my feelings on it, I'm absolutely fully in love with Fist of Fire Assassin. I'm sure there's other martial builds that probably feel similar, but this is the one I opted to go for. I was looking for something else to play because I kind of wanted to switch it up and do something different, and I wanted to play something I never had. And at the insistence of all the people in my community and chat, as they tried to push me away from Necromancer, since that's what I always end up playing, I went with this. I think the biggest thing that you have to solve for on something like an assassin is getting as much defense as possible, as if you run into a situation where you're not killing a pack, that's when you're actually in true danger. This is a upfront melee close build. You're teleporting directly into packs, similar to my old build, the Holy Free Sacrifice Paladin, but you don't have the same level of defenses as that build. You don't have as much defense, you don't have as much block. When it comes to ranking builds, as I said earlier, this might be one of the funnest, fastest builds I've ever played, and I've played a lot of builds in Project Diablo 2. I can't believe I've kind of slept on martial builds this long. Now that you're able to equip 2 Fire Lizard Talons with this build, or any other claw other than Stalker's Call, and keep the same mobility as of Season 12, you're pretty much going to find yourself flying around the map at full speed without any issue at all. When it comes to how I would approach this build, or what you would do, say you looked at this build, saw the footage, and were like, dang, I want to play that. And maybe you haven't started PD2 yet and you don't have any currency, or you're starting fresh, you want something to do to hold you over. Well, the way I would start this is a couple different options. When leveling an assassin, I've always kind of been preferential to traps, even though once you get to hell, being a single element build can be a problem. You could deviate a little bit, a couple points into the lightning traps or the fire traps, depending which one you picked as your primary, to help you with any immunes of your primary element. There's also the tried and true Cobra Strike Assassin leveling, and one of my personal favorites would be Blade Fury. I think Blade Fury is actually one of the better leveling abilities, and a lot of people sleep on it in favor of traps, though maybe not as much now that it's been changed so much. People probably have realized how strong it is. The reason I'd level as something other than Fist of Fire is, once again, not only are you a single element with Fist of Fire, which isn't entirely true because the third charge does Meteor, and that is part physical, but you are mostly one element. And I don't like one element builds because they lead you to having a lot of problems once you run up against large packs of immunities. The other issue that makes that even worse is that martial builds are upfront and melee, and early on when you're going through things like Nightmare and especially Hell, being melee without good defenses could be really rough. Granted, most classes are going to have to look at probably farming themselves up some gear, and some of the less powerful early on builds are going to need to do that, maybe in Nightmare Cows or early Hell. But when you're melee and up close, this becomes much worse and much more difficult to deal with. So I personally prefer things like Blade Fury or traps or something easy like that. Cobra's mostly good because Poison's strong throughout the game, but I prefer the more ranged, safer build options. Now, once you actually get to max level, how would you build into this? Well, for me personally, especially this late into a season, you want the Natalia's set. The way I initially played this build is I did get it rushed. I didn't level this from 1, though I do want to try to do that to get a good feel of what it would be like. I needed to get to level 85, so around level 79 or 80, I threw on the Natalia's set, which you can put the full set on around 79, and I put on a Fire Lizard, and I immediately started blasting. Natalia's is actually one of the better sets in the game. It's one of my favorites, and I think it's genuinely extremely powerful. If you're looking at this build from a budgetary option, I'd say get yourself the full Natalia's set, a Fire Lizard's Talon, either some 2 to 3 martial skills gloves, or something simple like Hellmouth. A good belt, like a Verdungo's, would be ideal, but you could try crafting something, maybe a safety belt, if you don't have the money for Verdungo's, and pretty much any rings. Obviously, plus skill rings are preferred. Ravenfrost is nice for CBF, and any plus skill necklace. Ideally, a crafted one with faster run walk would be good, but you're going to want to just get something that helps you get more plus skill, because it's going to be your big main scaler. And then, of course, martial skill charms, but those are, something you're not going to be buying right away. They're pretty cheap, though, at this point in the game, and I think martial charms have been cheap throughout the majority of this season, though if we're talking later seasons, I can't predict that yet. Once you have all this together, you can just clear maps really easily doing the same combo I do. You're not going to clear them as fast, or do as much damage as with the full setup with full of facets. However, you can fill the nat set with facets, and I know fire facets are super expensive this season, but you can fill them with the 3/3s or weaker ones just to get yourself a heavy level of pierce. This is mostly if you have an additional bit of money. It's entirely up to you if you think you're going to want to go to the super expensive version of this build, or if you're fine investing in a lower budget of it. And don't get me wrong, the nat set with a fire lizard talon is very, very good. Nat's claw gives you things like ignore target defense. The whole set itself gives you a ton of PDR. When combined with something like a Verdungo's, you're sitting at upwards of 35 PDR. It's a really good set. The value of it's insane, and it helps cap your res as well as give you plenty of really strong stats. There's nothing wrong with running that version of the build, and honestly, that version of the build you'd be very successful with farming. I personally moved on to more expensive versions of the build because I had the currency and I wanted to see how far I could push it. So next, let's go ahead and talk about the gear I'm using, the alternatives you could use, and some different choices I might make in the future, things I might upgrade to as I'm building it out. As I said, the nats is where I'd start, but if we're building earlier than that, you're probably just looking at any generic plus skill gear with high defenses. The main thing you want to do is cap your res and get as much PDR as possible because you are a close range build. So let's talk a bit about what I'm wearing currently and where it's going. You're going to notice a lot of empty sockets, and that's because I'm still slowly building it out. I've already invested pretty heavily into it, and I'm just trying to buy fast as I go. Though everything in the video you saw before in the footage is just me blasting without even being fully optimized. That's the funny thing about this build, I'm not even in its full realized state. I've actually bought a lot of things that I wouldn't have meant to in a perfect world where there was more access to certain types of gear. And I'll talk about some of my ideal setups for gear as I go. So obviously we have the claw. I bought a 4 fire skills and -15 enemy fire res, 3 socket fire lizards. This set me back about 3.5 high runes. And then it's full of 5/5 fire facets, which were 2.5 high runes each at the time of purchase. So pretty expensive already. You can see where the upwards of this is going to go. This is pretty simple. We have some 3 martial with attack speed and all res gloves. I actually found myself not really needing the attack speed so much, and that's a matter of you don't really need it for how you play this build. Yes, you want to build your charges quickly, and if you're looking at something like single target, it's pretty good. But with how you're kind of jumping around and expending the charges using Dragonflight, you don't really need that much attack speed, especially with burst of speed. You can use burst of speed to actually change your attack speed more than anything. Ideally here, I probably either want half freeze duration or some other strong stats to help, and then I could combine it with some HFD boots and get rid of my Ravenfrost. Problem there is going to be attack rating, but we'll talk about that. Helmet is Crown of Ages. I think this is one of the better helms for this build, mostly because it offers everything I want. Faster hit recovery, which I'm going to delve into in a bit, all res, physical damage reduction, and it just inherently has 2 to 3 open sockets. That's big for filling sockets, as any other helm you have to rely on a heavy corruption. Currently, I don't have anything in it because I'm still debating if I want to start slapping facets in it and spending money on it without getting a better corrupted version, but I just needed something to get going right now, and it was big for my res. Arcane's Valor, I only have 2 5/5 facets in it. I'm about to buy some more before I start up my stream and start playing because I've now come into more currency and I want to get these purchased and I want to get going. Ideally, in the end game of this build, obviously this is full facets. Arcane's one of my favorite choices for this. I think it's really good. It's got faster hit recovery, high vitality per level, the all skills, decent defense, and yeah, slamming with 3 sockets. Let me be clear, 3 sockets on an Arcane's +2 is very expensive. I paid 7 high runes for this at the time of recording. I have a Verdungo's down here. This one has increased chance of blocking, and while that is nice, I think my preferential one would be one with attack rating. Attack rating with a build like this does become an issue, even with Infinity on the Merc. I always want to make sure that I am hitting my targets, but this was the one I could purchase at the time, and I don't think it's too bad. Ideally, I get a perfectly rolled PDR version with high vit and probably attack rating. My ring is a Bolkathos. I like the extra life. I like the all skills. The MF slam is just a bonus. An ideal slam here is most likely mana or life on kill. I think more so mana on kill, as there are rare times, even with what I have for mana on kill, that I do struggle some little bit, but all you gotta do is pop a rejuve once every like 2 minutes. The ring is Ravenfrost. This is covering CBF, which is extremely important, especially with this build, or any build that's up close and relies on attack speed and movement speed. The attack rating is the solution for my hit issues, and hopefully I can figure that out so I can swap rings once I get HFD on boots and gloves. And this one is slammed with life after each kill, which is nice as this is my life after kill source. I'm wearing water walks with faster run walk, and this is strictly just because I wanted to move faster. Given the setup I have right now, I could put any pair of boots here, specifically because my res is handled everywhere else and I just wanted run walk. Also, you know, the max fire res is nice, putting me at 80 FR, so fire damage does less to me. However, any boots could go here right now. In the future, that will change if I move things around and change some of my gear, which once again, we're going to talk about. My offhand is just a badly slammed ED fire lizard. Ideally, we're looking for a perfect 4 -15 fire lizard with 3 sockets here that I will buy and fill with facets. My neck is a slammed and desecrated Mars Kaleidoscope. It's got huge all res as well as mana after each kill. I mostly got this because I was sick of trying to figure out my mana situation as well as my res situation, and I just wanted to get playing the build. I had spent way too long shopping and I was getting kind of bored and just wanted to go play. This was a great neck. I can use this in tons of other builds that I'm probably going to play, so I wanted to just grab this now when I saw it because it's got multi-use for me. Charms are all martial charms. Ideally, what I'm going to be doing is anything that isn't a life one here, or even some of the life ones maybe in the future, I want to swap out for faster run walk, and I want to get to a point where I'm just super speedy. I have a pretty good torch, 4919, pretty good Annie, 3620. All my charms are just covering my resistances to fill in the gaps that my gear currently doesn't, as my cold and lightning and poison needed a little bit of work. Fire is not going to be a problem because of fire lizard talon. If you're wearing the Nat set, you're going to have a lot less of an issue with this kind of thing because it has inherent all res on the helm and the set bonus, but you'll probably need a little bit to carry you through. The ideal world is we get all res charms like this, though they are very expensive. So when looking at swapping my gear, maybe swapping everything around, I need all res charms in all of these slots, meaning a huge high rune investment, but it gives me insane flexibility on the rest of my gear. So let's talk about what the alternatives might be. There's a lot of ways you can run this, like I said, outside Natalia's. 2 fire lizard talons, even without 3 sockets, maybe with 2 sockets, maybe with even 1 or 2 less of the negative fire res, are not too expensive. And then you could throw cheat facets in them if you like. You could also do a 2-socketed fire lizard's talon that was P-boxed that has a +1 all skill slam. That might be pretty expensive, but is also an alternative option that would net you a pretty good amount of damage. Helmet wise, and one of the things I'm considering is actually swapping to a V-gaze. Vampire gaze would be really strong with max rolled PDR here, as physical damage is really the only thing I'm ever in danger of being killed by in most situations, as elemental damage doesn't really do much to me given my capped res, my quick movement speed, and how often I kill things. But fizz, especially mob packs with high auras, are what's really dangerous. Losing the faster hit recovery wouldn't be ideal, as I'm currently at a really good breakpoint for it, which I'll show in a bit, but the extra PDR would be just really nice to have. The problem with this is losing the all resist and having to get one with 3 sockets, which now you're getting into a whole territory. There's also, you know, the reduced curse duration on this, which I really do enjoy because having amp put on you is also potentially a death sentence in a bad situation. You get might fanat archers combined with an amp, and you're probably falling over no matter how good your gear is. So a couple alternatives here. There's different ways you could gear this. You could put a arachnids here, and instead of an arcanes, use a shaft stop. That's totally a good option. Heavy PDR. Then you could swap the helm around. You could use Akira's, a Verdungos, and a shaft stop. That's really good PDR. Higher PDR than I'm using now. That's really good as well. It's a little less HP, but it's strong. I could keep this and swap to a Vamp Gaze, and then either swap or keep the Verdungos. There's a lot of flexibility here. Kira's is a really good option as well for negative fire res, and getting a socketed one of that's good. It also has all res. It also has built-in CBF, meaning you don't need CBF on another piece. So that's a fantastic option. Nothing against it. Then I would really only have to solve for PDR, which I would probably use a shaft stop in this belt. This necklace is not really necessary for this kind of build. It's not even like something you'd normally use in this. Ideally, I would want a +2 Sin or +2 Martial neck with faster run walk, all res, probably some life or mana on kill, and there's a couple little nice stats you could fit in on there as well. A lot of alternative options here, especially if your res is solved. I might change this in the future and save this neck for some other builds. I've got some ideas for it in the future. Rings, I want to drop my Ravenfrost and ideally like to get a better slammed Bolkathos, so something I can use on it, like life or mana on kill, probably mana more than anything. So swapping these out is ideal. I just need to fix my attack rating issue, which a slammed attack rating for Dungos would help with a lot. My gloves, like I said earlier, I'm going to keep the 3 Martial. If I can get rid of the slam there, get some HFD, maybe a like faster block recovery or block chance slam, something like that. Boots, million things I can switch to. Maybe some war travs, honestly, at this point, just for the MF would be cool. I don't really need most of the stuff on water walk. It's mostly just for slight defense and run speed. The faster block rate's kind of cool though. So that's my possible swaps for gear. We'll see what I'm going to do with that. There's a lot of options. I'm already clearing maps very fast. If anything, the only thing I want to solve for is my defenses. I just want to never or die and be able to turn my brain off. As far as my actual abilities, it's pretty straightforward. As when you look at Fist of Fire, the synergies, you're maxing Tiger Strike, you're maxing Dragon Flight. Those are pretty quick and easy to describe, and obviously you're maxing Fist of Fire. After that, however, is where things become a little more player's choice in how you want to handle it. There's a few ways to do this. 1 point in Claw and Dagger Mastery, this gets me to burst of speed, which I'm going to be always running since it does great things to our attack speed breakpoint and also gives me a ton of walk and run speed. Weapon Block and Shadow Warrior. These are two things I'm deciding between as well. I've actually split my points between these quite a bit, mostly because I'm trying to get more chance to parry and faster block rate, give myself a little less stagger time, and also Shadow Warrior is just really powerful. With Fist of Fire over on my left click, which you can't see behind my fat cat ass, and on my right click, she's pretty often that she'll utilize it when I teleport into packs. This just vastly increases your damage. Now, if you're looking at this build for something like bossing, you wouldn't even bother with Shadow Warrior because you'd spend more time resummoning the damn thing than you would actually using it, and you'd probably opt more into things like Weapon Block or Burst of Speed. If you honestly have enough speed, you could even go into Fade. If you have enough speed, you could even go into Fade. Fade is a great way to get yourself a ton of resistance as well as curse reduction. So if you feel you have enough speed without Burst of Speed, which I personally never feel I have enough speed, Fade's a good option too, because then you could stop caring about all that resist gear and just use this for a massive chunk of it and swap some things around. But yeah, if you're bossing, go more with Weapon Block and some other stats. If you just want to blast maps, I love the Shadow Warrior and how much damage she does. I probably just need to look more into like how I want to optimize this, but you know, Shadow Warrior is most likely going to be maxed before the end of all of it. As far as my stats go, I got myself upwards of 50% block with my dexterity, but the main focus was health. I wanted to get myself to a good amount of HP, roughly in the 15 to 1600 range, by putting as much vitality in as I could. Had to dump a lot into strength to be able to wear things like Arcane's Valor and Crown of Ages, so we're up at 175 raw strength, though we can get some charms or things to alleviate this in the future, maybe some slams. Did put quite a bit in dexterity, as I have 150 in here, just to go ahead and get myself really good block chance, as well as help with my attack rating. And then everything else is just dumped into vitality. Talked a bit about the breakpoints before, but let me go ahead and look at some of these. And what I want to mostly highlight is faster hit recovery. The main reason I'm using Crown of Ages and Arcane's Valor is so I can get to this point of faster hit recovery. This did require a couple FHR charms. I think I have 2 with +5 on them, just to take me from the 80 to the 86 breakpoint. But this level of FHR has felt really good when I'm teleporting into packs, especially if I mess up my combo. The way this build works, and you've probably seen in the footage, is what I'm trying to do is get 2 to 3 attacks off and then use Dragonflight. The funny thing is, most of the time you'll get 2 off by the time Dragonflight's back up, and then you can use it. There's 3 attacks in Fist of Fire. There's the initial attack, which is just some fire damage. The second one is the Fire Nova. There's the first attack, which is a burning fire on the ground. The second one, which is a Fire Nova, and the third, which is the big old meteor. The ones you want to focus on are 2 and 3. When we talk about Dragonflight, that thing does disgusting damage. It's a huge chunk, and it's going to blast. What I try to focus on is either Fire Nova or Meteor, but with my cooldown being so quick, I usually have the second charge, and then I just Dragonflight. So it's kind of a 1-2 Dragonflight, 1-2 Dragonflight combo, or 1-2-3 Dragonflight, 1-2-3 Dragonflight, depending on your attack speed and depending how many things you can hit. Doing that, you're basically teleporting between packs and blowing them up with fire damage. Now, you don't have to like master this combo. You can also just kind of like right click into things if you want, but it's more fun to do it this way where you're just teleporting all over the map like some kind of crazy flicker build. And the reality is mastering it that way is going to get you the quickest results. One more thing I want to go over actually is my Merc gear, and I don't want to forget that. It's pretty important and a question I get often, and there's a couple ways you can approach this. I like to make sure my Merc's res is capped, and I like to make sure he has lifesteal and as much attack speed as I can fit in while still getting the rest of the stats I need. Shaft Stop was an obvious choice on him. I have an IAS jewel in here as well as an rune to help with res. The high PDR is really strong as well as decent defense and some bonus life. Gloves, Lava Gout, the attack speed's nice, and the enchant proc actually affects you as well, and not just the Merc, giving you more attack rating. It also has HFD on it, which combines with our helmet, which is Flickering Flame. Ideally, you want to try to get a level 6 resist aura. I got a 4. It is a Vex on every attempt, so that kind of sucks, and it rolls 1 to 6, which extra sucks. But resist fire aura also gives you a % fire damage increase while he's close to you, which is almost all the time, and also half freeze duration. So with these 2 items, freeze immune. Very important for a Merc to keep them alive. Boots, I just have Nat Boots on him right now. I have that on him because of the cold and lightning resist were the only ones he was lacking. Can swap boots to something else whenever I want. String of Ears, more PDR and lifesteal, very important. He needs some form of lifesteal to stay alive sometimes. And of course, the weapon is Infinity. Conviction Aura is just by far too strong on any elemental build that can utilize it. It's 32 negative res on an enemy. This can break some lower tier fire immunes, as well as just give you flat more damage on these targets. So it's just a great thing to have. It is a little expensive. But yeah, this is the pretty much day one of this build, the real day one of it. The first day one was just me leveling after being boosted. I don't know if we'll do more updates on this, but I will go ahead and keep an eye on it. If you do want just like live actual daily updates of how the build is going, how I'm feeling about it, and what's going on, you can check my stream. I'm live pretty much every day, always blasting, and I'll be playing this build for the next few days, probably having a great time, just seeing how much currency I can put into it, how fast I can get it going, and just how much fun I have with it. It'll be a great time to vibe with people and talk about the build, so feel free to stop by. Thank you again, everyone, for checking out all my PD2 content. It's been an absolute blast making it and talking to all the new people that have stopped by due to it, as well as responding and reading the comments and getting ideas for future content. Anyway, I'm Sleepy Cat, and I'm tired. Good night.